Gotcha.
Hello. How are you, Judy?
Good evening.
Hi, Lorna, how are you?
Okie dokie, how are you?
Good.
Good.
I thought I had the agenda up. Huh?
We have a new member tonight. This is Chloe. She literally sits on my arm.
I think she's joined us before.
I think she has. She must have known. She's interested in the topic.
She's cute.
Want any ice cream?
Thanks.
You would give it another minute. Just want to see if Kristen is going to join.
Is Bill joining us this evening?
He isn't, he has a conflict.
Okay.
He offered to, try to change his schedule if he, but I told him I thought we would be okay. So I'll give you the lowdown once we're all on. Okay, so it's 7:02. Hopefully Kristen will join. So tonight is Monday, March 13. It's 7:02, and we're going to call the our special edition Wakefield Commission on Disabilities meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our mission is to address the needs and concerns of our disabled residents and provide their full participation in the activities and services of Wakefield. So I can see we have at least one person from the public. So tonight's going to be a typical meeting. We'll give the public their opportunity to speak during public participation. And then once public participation is over, it will be just for us to discuss how we want to move forward with the with any recommendations we might want to make to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So Megan, are you interested in speaking?
Sure. Is this my time now?
This will be your time. Would you just state your name and where you're from, please?
I'm Megan McDonough, and then 185 Main Street, Melrose. I've been following the project, and I'm curious how it's going to work out with disability concerns. I am disabled. I'm not on the Melrose Commission, just to be clear. I always like to say that. But I do like to advocate for issues when I see them. And I just emailed you and Bill Renault because I noticed in the list of permits and the project documents, there's a disability variance that says for January 2023. And I learned that the disability variances, if it is a 521 variance, would go through the Architectural Access Board. I spoke with the Architectural Access Board as late as last week, and they said they haven't seen anything for 100 Hemlock Road. They said, and I talked to the building department for Wakefield, and they said if there is a disability variance under 521 CMR, it would come to the town of Wakefield, and there would be some sort of public comment period hosted by the Disability Commission, and then it would go to state level to Architectural Access Board where there can be more advocacy if necessary. But I also don't have confirmation that they are going for that variance. So I thought that maybe if I came to this meeting, you guys might know more about that.
Where did you see this? What were you reading where you saw this?
There's a link, and I sent the link to the Disability Commission and to Bill Renault. And it's their list of project permits that they need. So like the Conservation Commission's there, SWIP permits, the construction permits. And then in January of 2023, it says disability variance. So I'm assuming that's a 521 CMR. But as things are so fluid with project development, I don't know if that's something that they are going to go for or not. And the Architectural Access Board, as late as like maybe like early last week, they hadn't heard anything yet. And they said that if there is going to be one, that it could be applied for at any point in the design. It doesn't have to be a finished design, and it doesn't have to be contingent on any other permits.
So that's nothing that Bill has brought to our attention yet. But you've said you sent us an email and you've sent him the link. You must have sent it this evening because I hadn't seen it earlier when I was on earlier today.
Just about 20 minutes ago, and
Okay,
it's just a line item, and it doesn't even really explain it. So I don't know if it's ramp related or not, but I am interested how the ramp will play out.
okay, so we will, we'll get with Bill to get the details as to whether he's even seen it or aware of it. And I'm sure that if they do go forward with the variance, that he will bring it forward to us and that we will discuss it at a future meeting once we have more details.
Thank you, and thank you for hosting last week's meeting.
You're welcome. Okay, so I'm looking, Jennifer,
Yeah, hi. I also wanted to say thank you for hosting last week's meeting. And wanted
excuse me,
to,
let me just interrupt. Can you just give your full name and where you're from, please?
yeah, I'm a Wakefield resident, Jennifer Fanning.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you for hosting the meeting last week. Providing an opportunity for questions that people have. And I did want to ask a follow-up question, which is whether it sounded like a note was made during the meeting of a need for a follow-up meeting focused on safety, and I just wanted to see if I understood that correctly.
It will be my intention to present to the board if we have any safety concerns. Our meeting tonight will be to, specifically for questions to the Zoning Board of Appeals. But if we do have any safety concerns, we will also put those in writing. And we will request that they be directed to police and fire as necessary for review and comment.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, that's all I see for public participation. Is there anybody else on the call that I'm not seeing? Okay, so we are going to close public participation at this time. We're going to go to our next item, which is approval of the minutes from our February 6th meeting. I did send those to everybody, right? Okay, I thought I did, but then I couldn't remember. Does someone want to make a motion to approve those?
I think we did this at the last meeting. Did we?
Did we, the February 6th?
At the March 6th meeting?
You could be right.
One moment, please. I haven't written up the minutes yet.
Thought we went right into the presentation, but
I
I could
think
be
we did. I
wrong.
think you're right. Thank you for catching that. No, we did
I'm
not.
glad I'm not losing my mind.
You are
Okay,
not losing your mind.
that's why I have Lorna between the two of us.
Well, obviously I am, so there you go.
That's okay. You had that was a busy meeting last week. So would someone make a motion to approve the February 6th meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Judy. And second? Thank you, Paula. Okay, so we're good with those. Lois, no change to the finances?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so our main purpose tonight is to just sort of talk about our meeting from last week and express any concerns. But specifically to move forward any concerns we have to the Zoning Board of Appeals and any safety concerns we have to be addressed by the police and fire. So I'm gonna open it up to you folks for comments and, please comment because we heard a lot of information, so very interested in what people have to say. Lorna?
Well, one of my concerns, which I do have many, but one of the concerns I have would be, safety for all. And that's that ramp. That part of it is, built on ground because that's the way it is going up. And then it turns and it starts to become elevated, excuse me, off the ground. And my concern is a wintertime because just like when you're driving your car, they tell you to be very careful to going over bridges. And so this is going to be raised up, cold air is going to get underneath, and it doesn't mean that there's steel reinforcements underneath is going to stop any freezing that happens. I would think it would almost enhance it somewhat.
So we heard, and I have the video of our meeting last week. I wasn't able to get through all of it, but I have it up and I kind of noted certain sections of it. So if there's any part of the presentation that we want to look at tonight, specifically at any of the graphs or photos, just let me know and I'll do my best to share and get us there. So my recollection of what, they're supposed to get some kind of equipment, right? What did he say? This ramp is going to be 8 feet wide. So they're going to have some kind of particular equipment that they're going to purchase to keep it clean. I mean, I don't, so they're going to be out there plowing it. They're going to be treating it with however they're going to be able to treat it, right? Because as we've heard and read from the public, the environmentalists are very concerned about what kind of chemicals are going to go down on that that aren't going to seep into the water and the ponds and all up there. So yeah, I don't know. I don't dispute the concern. Winter is bad here on some years, so that is a definite concern. Judy?
So I actually wrote, thought a lot about this, and I wrote what I want to say. So first, I want to start by mentioning a lot of students come to the vocational school by bus, which comes right up to the building. So this is the statement that I wanted to read. I have personal experience with the current vocational school building and their struggle with adequate access. While advocating on behalf of those with disabilities, we also need to be mindful to not cause delay and not hinder the project, which will ultimately improve the building for both students as well as faculty who are coping with challenges. I look forward to the improvements that were outlined in the March 6th meeting, which are not limited to, but include the 2 elevators and the accessible preschool area. My recommendations at this time are twofold. Number 1, I would like to suggest that in addition to the 20 designated handicap parking spaces in the lot closest to the new school building, that an additional 5 spaces be at the ready if the need arises to rapidly increase handicap parking in that area. And number 2, I would like to suggest that the 12 communities provide encouragement and support to the Vocational School Disability Advisory Board. Thanks.
I think I heard that there were 22 spaces on the upper level of the building.
I know that the preschool area on their map, there was one specific to that, at least one specific to that area, so you may be correct. So whatever they have right now, I would just like to suggest that they consider an extra 5.
Mhm. Did you
in
come up?
case there needs to be more, if they find that more is necessary.
So you're saying to kind of like put that on hold so that they've got 8 spaces that are designated as
So-
non-accessible parking right now, save those 8 spaces to become 5 or whatever they need.
Yes, so that if their disability advisory board feels that there's more people than they thought who would be parking in the lower lot, need to park in the area closest to the building, that could be ramped up very quickly. The presentation on March 6th was very specific that most of the students who bring their own vehicles are seniors and some juniors. A lot of the students will be arriving by bus. It may be that the sites that they've already got in that area closest to the building will be sufficient. But if not, I think they need to be able to increase those rapidly.
And it might be that they need to increase it by more than 5, but it just, I would say, maybe if we say that should the need arise for spaces for faculty, staff, or visitors for additional accessible spaces in the upper lots, that should be brought to the attention of whomever. I don't know if it's the school board or whomever, and that should be rectified. So, I don't know how many faculty members there are. I don't know how many of those spaces will be filled by faculty members. It sounds like students are not allowed to park in that upper parking lot. And I wanted to also be crystal clear that students who have disabilities, faculty members with disabilities, or visitors with disabilities, but the students who are really relegated to that lower parking lot will be able to park in the upper parking lot if they
Exactly.
on a regular basis.
That was my thought as well.
Yeah, and I wasn't crystal clear about that in the conversation, that that's what they were saying. So I'd like to clarify that obviously faculty with disabilities, they're already in that lot anyway. So, and visitor spaces need to be left open and unoccupied that include an accessible, I don't know how many accessible spaces would be needed, but if you have a parent, grandparent, whomever, if you have somebody that's visiting the school during the school day, I'm not necessarily thinking for the special events, because that's not going to have all the faculty lot full, I hope. But I think that reassessing how many spots are needed for whatever reason is a good idea. I think that the lower spots that are accessible are also needed for people that are going to sporting events that are, the fields are down there. And all the, all of that, locker rooms and whatever. So when events are taking place at the lower field, they certainly need accessible spots. But for regular school day, they should figure out and be open to flexing exactly what you were saying, Judy, as needed. Because it could be that they need 10 more spots. And
Yes, I think that there needs to be a number that could be immediately added if it is necessary. I put down in my notes that there are 200 spots in the parking area close to the building.
Can you see my screen? Can you
Yes.
All right, are you
Yes.
seeing the school building?
Yes.
Okay.
So as they were presenting, I wrote down in my notes that there are 200 spots near the building, with 20 of those designated right now as handicapped, 5 of those with the stripes for the accessible doors. If my notes are correct and I understood them correctly. And then I wrote down that they have 7 handicap spots designated in the lower lot, as you said, for the fields and whatnot.
Right,
Yeah,
so that's,
unless anybody has other information, that's what I had written down as we.
I had 250 parking spaces by the building, 5 spaces in the upper lot and 7 spaces in the lower lot were the 8-foot spaces. If you look here, it says total proposed parking spaces is 476, includes 22 proposed accessible parking spaces. You can see where here, there's 5 right here by the door. So that's the 5 in the upper lot. Those must be the 5, the spaces that are 8 feet. But I can't, they don't have them marked in this drawing. There's
looks like
one
by the bus drop off, there might be, is there another one over there? Are the numbers that are written in a white circle, are those the number of parking spaces in each of those areas?
I believe so. So there's 3 here, there's 171 here, 29 here, 11 here. It looks like these blue purplish lines are the accessible. So there's 1 accessible space behind the daycare. I think I've forgotten what this entrance is. Oh, pedestrian access. So this is where you would come up the ramp, and there's a space there. There's a space here by the where the bus
It looks
drop
like there
off
might be
is, or
2
2
spaces.
spaces, more
Yeah.
than, yeah, at least 2 spaces there.
I came up with 218 upper spaces. 22 proposed accessible spaces, so 7 below, 15 above. It's hard to tell.
It is hard to tell. I will try to go through this one a little more, but the point Judy is trying to make is that she feels that there should be, in addition to the handicapped spaces that are identified, there should be more that can easily and quickly be converted. And your thought, Judy, for that is because, you know, for visitors, for students, I mean, those spaces that are going to be converted, are they going to, would we say they're only for those that have a handicap placard?
So I would probably defer to their disability advisory board. But my suggestion would be that once everything is in place, because I don't want to see anything be held up. I would like them to be able to move forward. And I think that some of this is going to become more clear as people start to really utilize the areas. But I would like to be able to see them be able to increase the handicap parking closest to the building rapidly if they find the need to do that.
And I think, would we want them to adopt that as a policy? Would we want to create that as a protocol or a policy that is adapted or adopted by the VOTEC school committee, that they will assess? You know, it could be that they have, out of the 22 spaces that they have, 9 of them filled the first week of school, but if we increase the number of people coming to that school that need the accessible spaces over time, they may eventually fill them, or they could all be filled on the very first day, and they would find that they didn't reserve enough. And
So at this time, personally, I would make it as a suggestion to their disability advisory board that they be able to quickly assess and get more up there as needed. I don't know that we need to specify it as a policy, but more of a suggestion from our, that maybe that's the way to do it.
I think that works. And I think they're not going to know what they need until the school opens and people come. And then they'll be able to assess. But I think that being able, as you said, to change on the fly as quickly as possible. And then I heard somebody say something about, are we suggesting that the accessible spaces be limited for use by people that have a placard, a disability placard displayed in their car? Or is somebody able to say, I get really winded walking up the ramp, I need to.
So I know Lana has something she wants to mention, but I did note during their meeting that the handicap spots specifically would be for people, it sounded like people with placards, but that they could work individually with their student body who had challenges that you just outlined, to allow them to park up in the lot closest to the building without a placard. I heard them mention that at the meeting.
Thank you, Judy. Lorna?
Can you unmute me?
You are unmuted. We can hear you. Asked to unmute. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
No, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to bring up. There are some, people that have invisible handicaps or disabilities that not necessarily have placards. And basically, if somebody has bad asthma, especially in the cold weather, would never make it from the lower parking lot up without probably having to use their inhaler 7 times getting up there. So, and I bet you there's more than 2 or 3 in the building that have that type of problem, especially during the winter time. Probably staff included.
Good point.
So, and as far as, I think that the elevation from the parking lot to their fields isn't quite as high as the elevation from the parking lot up to the school. And although freshmen and sophomores take a bus and can be dropped up there, there's the juniors and seniors that prefer to bring their own cars. So I do worry about, all the kids in general, because I actually think that it's a miserable place to put a school, but they're going to do that anyhow. Doesn't matter what we say. The other concern I have is the ability, we did not, this wasn't brought up at the meeting last week, but certainly a few of us have had conversations around it. They did not outline the evacuation of a building. In case of a fire, in case of a bomb threat, whatever, there needs to be evacuated. Where, like to know what their plan is of how to evacuate somebody in a fire, and they cannot, and they use whether it's a wheelchair, a walker, or crutches or whatever, how they are going to get them out of from the 3rd floor or 5th floor, whatever, how many floors are in this building. What's
Or
their plan? Believe me, I've been stuck in a building with somebody in a motorized wheelchair on the 5th floor in their school, and no one found us. Thank goodness it wasn't a real bad fire.
I had a colleague who used a wheelchair, and the policy at Department of Public Health was that people using, we had a number of colleagues with wheelchairs, they were to wait by the elevator to be escorted out by the fire department. And one of my colleagues said, I'll invite you to my barbecue.
Yeah.
He had a very wry sense of humor, but we got we finally, after 10 years in the building, got evacuation chairs, and the evacuation chairs were by the stairwell. So that, but they left the evacuation chairs in a 1st floor closet for about 6 months, because they were afraid if people actually used them, they would hurt their backs and I guess, sue the department or whatever. So they didn't even put them out. They finally did put them out, but they're going to need evacuation chairs in the building, because you're, not supposed to use an elevator for evacuation purposes.
And so, I brought that up to a friend of mine who's an architect, and what you described, Janice, is exactly what she said. She's never designed a school, but in other type buildings, she said that is part of code, that, that they wait at a stairwell and get carried down. To me, that just, how in the world can somebody carry down a high schooler? And so I started to do some research online, and exactly that. I found the evacuation chairs, and I'm just looking at a website right now, and I definitely think that should be a recommendation. You're right, we didn't hear what their plan was, but yeah, I definitely think that an evacuation chair or chairs, and I'm looking, I can't tell how many stairways they have. It looks like there's at least one on either side of the building. You can see the elevators, but then when I look down here, I see some more stairs. So it's really hard to tell how many staircases there are from, say, from the 4th, 3rd, 2nd floor down to the ground level.
I think there might be at least 3.
I agree with
least
you,
3.
Lorna. I think that's an excellent point, and that might be something to bring up with the safety committee, that that may be a recommendation that they could look into as well.
I'm hoping it's already in their plan, and I'm hoping that,
Which it may be.
Right, we
Would
just
be
did.
nice if it were.
or it may not be.
Judy, I have to ask you, what's your opinion of the ramp? Is it your,
So my personal opinion is that the building that they are working with now is in real need of upgrade for accessibility. So in my personal opinion, that comes first and foremost. But it's one of the reasons that I'm focusing more on people who have mobility needs or other similar concerns, as Lorna outlined, that they would be allowed to park in the parking lot close to the building and utilize the lower lot if they wanted to use the fields or some areas in that vicinity.
Also,
Judy?
says that if you're going in the accessible main entrance, you're going to be very close to an elevator going in that entrance as well. So seconding what Judy said, to have the spots in the close to the main entrance of the building. I think I interrupted somebody, I'm sorry.
But
Oh,
that is the reason that I'm not totally convinced that the number of spots that they have designated will be adequate. It may be, but I would like them to be able to ensure that they can have an adequate supply up there very quickly if they designate a need.
Judy, just for my own curiosity, is how comfortable would you be having to go up that ramp in your wheelchair?
So I actually just ordered myself a mobility scooter today, which will be the third one I've owned. So my mobility scooter could probably do that without any concern at all. I don't travel far in a wheelchair that I am personally making go myself. I would use a mobility scooter. That's for me. I'm
Okay.
fortunate that I can get up and walk certain amounts of distance without assistance. I use things for distance, but I would personally use a mobility scooter, and I think it would be fine. I assume that it would be fine.
Yeah.
It's hard to picture something that's not in front of you, but I think that people who they may have motorized equipment too.
They may have, but I mean, I'm thinking of the person who does not have the motorized scooter or does not have a motorized wheelchair.
Which again is why I think that the area near the building needs to be adequate for the needs of the student body who requires that modification.
Anybody else want to comment? Paula?
I mean, it's kind of different than what we've been talking about, just kind of regarding the ramp. And kind of the walk through the forest or the woods or whatever they called it. And I guess to lead into that, I really appreciated the conversation at the beginning of last week's meeting about, getting people who are on IEPs into the VOC and having a, special education department that's able to support them. And the people that I've supported, that hasn't been the case. So I'm glad to hear that that's something that could change. I think that this could be, I think that vocational services could be wonderful for so many people. And I'm thinking of the people without physical disabilities, but disabilities that you can't see. And I think my concern about the ramp, I'm concerned about the grade, having pushed many a wheelchair up some steep hills, is the safety. Somebody had mentioned during the meeting, like, how would you get off of the ramp? Or I'm just thinking that people who are easily persuaded and teenagers are not necessarily known for making great choices, that kind of walk in the woods or the ramp through the woods really provides just like a perfect opportunity for somebody to be abused. And maybe I live too much in a world where people are abused on a regular basis, and that's just part of the work that I do. But it just seems like it's like it just seems concerning. And I've tried and I've looked at like different options, because I'd rather come today with a solution rather than a challenge. But I just feel like that needs to be noted. I don't know if there's any amount of light that's gonna matter. And I second Lorna's concerns about the it freezing quicker because it's got the cold air coming up from underneath. I don't know if there's a way to like have a bus service during, I don't know, a van or something that can take people, maybe from, I mean, this year we haven't had a whole lot of snow, but I'm thinking from December through March. I don't know, but I am concerned about the safety, not just of people with all different abilities. I'm thinking also somebody with like a mental health challenge or something like that. It's a great place to kind of escape to. I don't know, from my professional perspective, in being in many schools, that presents a safety concern to me. So I just wanted to bring that up.
I didn't hear anyone raise the idea of having a shuttle from the lower to the upper lot. I think that's a really good original idea that we should present as an option, and maybe as Judy, as you were saying, present it to their disability committee and talk about it as, you gotta have an accessible van that can.
So I thought of that as well, and that's why I think that their disability advisory board is going to be so key, because I think a lot of things are going to come to light once everything is there and people are actually using the facility. It's difficult to think in hypothetical. I personally, I think it's a real upgrade from what they have now. I'm excited to see it happen.
I think it's a personal upgrade from what we have now. Also, I just think it's going in the wrong place to make it safe and accessible for everyone. Definitely they need a new school. This is designed beautifully, but it just seems to be an awful lot of barriers in making it safe and accessible. That's just my opinion.
The location presents its challenges, and
Right.
for sure. And and I think that, we've all had to accept the fact that the location is probably not going to change. So now the question is, what accessibility and safety measures can we introduce to make the situation is, as good as it can possibly be? Because I share Paula's safety concerns, and that's what I had brought up in last week's meeting, and it was when we saw that picture of the actual photo
Going through the woods.
of going through the woods, it just hit me. Okay, I'm up there, here we go, taking a class, and I'm coming out at 10 o'clock at night, and I'm walking down this to go to my car.
Even at 4 p.m. in the winter, you're at an after-school activity, you're at a sporting
Correct.
something.
It's dark.
I had exactly the same reaction, and Marie, when you brought it up, I was thinking like, oh my God, it's not just me, thank goodness. I remember I went to University of New Hampshire, and behind the library, without the rampway, there was a walkway through this beautiful, beautiful wooded area to then get back to the dorms. And it was really lovely to walk through during the day, and it was scary as hell to walk through at night. And this was a college campus, in New Hampshire, in, a rural area. It was not like it just, and this was in the 70s. So it was, I had exactly the same reaction. And the concept that they said, well, somebody said cut the trees down, well, that's going to cause, the environmental people. And it's like, I'm really in line with the environmental people, and I hate trees to be cut down. I would not want young people walking through, or anybody. I wouldn't want me walking through this when it's dark. They're going to run into problems. There's just no question that there will be some problems occurring. Aside from skateboarders getting on this ramp and going down really fast and running people over, because they're not going to be able to put anything on the ramp that's going to prevent people from doing that as well. It just, to me, they have to open up at least one side of it. So there's is there an opening? The way the drawing was done, it looked like there were no trees around it. So exactly how many trees there are, they're just going to need more clear access to visualizing what's going on, so that from 50 yards away, you can see that there's somebody on this ramp. 50 yards away, you would have no idea if there was a person on the ramp. No idea if there were, people waiting to bully or hurt or injure or abuse the person who is using this ramp. It's got a lot of issues to it. It isn't people going hiking and taking a walk in the woods. That's not the point of going to school, to take a little walk through the woods. I think trees need to be cut.
So in that meeting last week, we heard that for the parts of the ramp that are less than, I've forgotten what the height was. Maybe he said 3 feet, anything 3 feet or less would be open. Or there was some height where it could be open, because someone expressed a concern about feeling trapped and not being able to get off the ramp. And he said that there would be openings at certain parts throughout.
Marie,
where
could
it
you
was-
go to the drawing of the ramp? Because that you can kind of see where the potential. I don't remember where it was.
Parking lots. Let's see, I wrote some notes. 15 minutes interior, outside ramp. This, I think, is, here we go. Is this what you're
There's
talking
this one, and then
about?
there's I think the next slide shows sort of the whole thing. So this one, nope. I lied.
Yeah, it's not, I'm really not going through slides as much as because I don't have the slides. I'm just kind of scanning the presentation.
There's one slide where you can see where this one.
Is that it?
Yep. So you can see some of the places, like you go where the number 1 is, and you can see the person using the wheelchair going up, and then there's an opening right there on the left.
Oh, right there, yeah.
Yep, and walk up to the first set of stairs, and there's an
There's an
opening on the
opening
right.
here, it looks like. there's
Continue
an
up the
opening
ramp, there's
here.
more opening. I think where it's level with the ground, they're able to make openings. Now, I wonder if that's an opening, but it could be all mud on the outside. Having a platform there of some kind, whatever this is going to be, concrete or that Trex or whatever it's going to be.
Decking, some kind of
Supposedly decking, so that you could actually get off the ramp. If somebody's skateboarding down the ramp and you want to pull off so that you're not going to get rammed by somebody coming down, you couldn't pull off of that especially if you're using a power chair. Those are heavy, and it would potentially sink in, and you might not be able to get back onto the ramp.
Mhm.
So it looks like the next one maybe has a little bit going beyond the top of it. The looks like some of the spaces have extra.
Oh, I'm sorry, you were still talking about that picture here?
Yeah.
Oh,
You know, but it's hard to say, it's hard to really to know, but creating some spaces that actually could be used as a pull-off zone or a walk-off zone. So somebody could, you don't actually have to step off into the dirt, which could be snow, which could be mud. But at the top of this first long ramp on the right, it almost looks as if the surface goes beyond the fencing, so that there's a little space, but maybe doing that purposefully.
I
So that
believe they talked about some platforms. Maybe that's what that rendition is.
maybe. But that might be something to ask about, is that, so when you've got the openings in the rail and the fencing around the ramp, could there be additional platform built that extends beyond the fence so that a person could fully get off the ramp safely to, in a non-elevated way, so that you didn't have to put fencing around it. And this one shows, I don't even know if this is actually the ramp they're talking about, or is this just a picture of a ramp? Because this has no trees.
well, that's what I was gonna say. There's trees up here, but it doesn't look like that photo that we were just
Right.
looking at all. So yeah, what is it really going to look like? I had mentioned video cameras last week. If it's gonna look like that photo that we were just looking at with all the trees, they absolutely need very good lighting. They're gonna need video cameras.
That work.
Yeah, and he said that building is staffed pretty much 24/7. So how, I'm thinking of some kind of a call button or something, but then, we're talking about kids. So then what? Are they going to be pushing that button every time they're just walking by it? I don't know.
They have those call boxes on campuses. Or all around campuses they will have, and it looks like one of those fire boxes. You have to actually open it up and do
Okay.
something, not just tap on it, but they should certainly have something that's some kind of call box, but it would be probably connected to the police, unless they have 24/7 campus security and campus. So who would respond would be a question. If there were call boxes, or at least a call box at some point along the ramp, who would respond to that? Is there, campus security, or is that something that would be connected to the Wakefield Police Department?
So it sounded like their safety committee, which will be meeting, also has some of the Wakefield Police Department on it. Is that what people got from that meeting? That's what I had heard.
Yes.
So
Yep.
maybe these topics could be sent over to their safety committee. It's possible they've already gone over some of these, and maybe that could encourage some discussion for that committee.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to document these safety concerns, and then have, even if it's Bill who has to route them to the appropriate people. But I definitely think that it needs to be, stated. The other question was medical emergency. If there was a medical emergency on the ramps, I'm assuming that maybe some of these areas that are open would be how people might be able to, how they would maybe gain access.
So I'd also heard them speak during the meeting that I didn't write it down, but it sounded like, if my memory serves, that 18 faculty are on quotation parking lot duty, which it sounded like that
Yes.
might also include this ramp. So
Well, that's a good idea during the, make sure that ask the safety committee if a person could be designated to be the ramp person. And they're gonna learn what is really needed. They might need 2 ramp people. They might need 3 ramp people.
I agree. And that's why I think a lot of this is going to be with their disability advisory board. Once they get up and running, to see, they might need more than 1. They might need 3, who knows?
Did you get the I got the impression that that disability advisory board was convened for the purpose of the development of these plans. Is it your understanding that that board is going to continue on once the school is built?
So that's one of the suggestions that I wanted to encourage, that vocational disability advisory board. I'd like to really provide 12 towns to encourage that board to, yes, to continue meeting.
I agree.
So we can talk about this hypothetically, but they will know the facts once people start to voice concerns.
Yeah, I definitely think that that is a good recommendation as well. Because if issues are coming up and they're being reported to the school and it's just going on deaf ears, there really should be a group that's going to be charged with being responsible for hearing these and hearing this and acting upon it.
Marie,
Hi, Lois.
hi, my question, maybe it's totally proportion of what I was gonna say, is will traffic advisory board have any input on anything?
Well, they had, if you recall, there was a meeting a few weeks ago. And they,
I remember, it was a very
right,
long-
and the point that Lieutenant Anderson, I mean, some of this came up, but the point Lieutenant Anderson made was that meeting, the traffic advisory meeting, is really to discuss the traffic issues.
Right,
And he said that public safety would need to address some of these other issues. If they're meeting on it, I haven't seen any public meetings.
No.
I don't see
Just-
public meetings. Do you?
no, we usually get something ahead of time on the listing of what the topics are,
For the traffic advisory committee?
yeah.
So when is the next meeting?
I don't even know yet, it hasn't been set up yet, that I know.
Okay, so they don't meet regularly, like monthly or whatever, they just meet on an as needed basis?
Right,
Gotcha.
I just thought maybe, traffic advisory, even though that's what the traffic advisory is, I just thought maybe there could be input from them also.
Well, maybe what we'll do is, once we can,
A bill.
identify our list of concerns, we'll, not only will we copy Bill, but we'll copy Lieutenant Anderson, and that way he can direct it to whoever he thinks would be the appropriate people.
I think there was a mention of working with the Traffic Advisory Commission on that supposed rotary that's supposed to
Correct,
go in at the end of
correct,
Hemlock.
yeah,
I think that's where the Traffic Advisory Committee probably comes in and puts a lot of input in, I would think.
But I was just trying to push them over that way a little bit to see if they could do something.
yeah, I definitely think we
See
should
that-
include him.
Here, this is the paperwork that we have to fill out for the building that's gonna be built. And maybe that's something else that they might think about. Traffic advisory, letting them know.
Right, and if they're not the right people, then Lieutenant Anderson would know where to direct it.
Right. Maybe I'm thinking wrong. I'm just putting my thoughts out.
Nope, that's good. All right, any other,
I had one thing, and maybe it's a question. And when I'm looking particularly at this picture, and I'm thinking of, someone had mentioned something about the platforms earlier, but I was thinking of somebody that comes up this ramp, if they needed to pull off for a rest. If you're in a wheelchair, you have a spot at least to sit. You may not have the area in the current diagram, but you are already able to sit. But is there any thought of, in my head, it's almost like at the end of one of these back and forth, at the end of the zigzag, it's almost like a circular kind of area where there would be like a built-in bench around. So if you were walking, so if you're ambulatory, but you get tired or you get overwhelmed or whatever, and you need to sit, where might there be an opportunity for that? Because I was also thinking about the person that was asking about the bathrooms, and like,
right,
if not necessarily a bathroom per se, because I don't know that that's really an option, but at least an area where you could be off to the side, sitting, and a little bit more space than being on the ramp. So not only just a space, but a space with seats.
I think that's a great idea. Benches
yeah,
at each
so
of the,
benches.
That
Yeah.
is a
At each
good
of the
idea
openings.
for a bench someplace on one of their platforms. Yeah.
yeah, I think you could provide a couple of benches on the way up that, where those openings are, if we're asking them to put a flat surface so people can get off the ramp, put a bench there.
Right, so have a bench and then have a space maybe where somebody could pull their wheelchair up and just rest for a little bit before moving on. Yeah, that is.
Yeah,
Or
just
even
like a
somebody who's
large enough
walking.
space that it would have the room for somebody in a wheelchair to be, and it would have somewhere for somebody that needed to sit at the same time. So if, let's say there was a group walking up and the group needed a place, that it's not like just like one bench for like three bottoms, but like a little bit more space.
Great idea.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
So
the-
just for our own clarity, it sounds like we've got kind of two categories here. One, safety
Yes.
to pass along to their safety committee, and then one category for recommendations from this committee. I'm wondering if we could just go over those as a group.
Yes, because what we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to come up with the recommendations and we're gonna need to vote on them at this meeting. And then I would suggest that, you're gonna vote to allow me to craft a letter. And then I will work with Bill Renaud and to actually, he's gonna guide us as to what recommendations we have will be suitable for the zoning board of appeals and what recommendations will go on with safety. We can probably figure that out on our own, but just how the best way to handle that will be. So does anybody else on the board want to make any other comments or recommendations that you think should be included?
Just one other question. Was
Sure.
there a discussion at all about security cameras?
We talked about that. We actually, I think I brought it up at the meeting last week.
Okay, I think I missed that.
Yeah, because we were just discussing that, because when you look at that photo, just take this photo.
Yeah.
It's, I think we all probably reacted the same way when we saw this. And then you think about, 15, 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. And, as Paula mentioned, the concern is somebody getting assaulted. Absolutely. They're beating up one another in broad daylight in the streets of Boston. Why wouldn't they, grab somebody walking along this? I mean, it's a
Marie,
definite concern.
I know that they talked about the lights and the cameras. When you brought that up, do you remember was that already in their plan? Were they considering it? What was the response? I don't recall.
The lighting they already had, they were already preparing for. He suggested, he thought the cameras were a good idea. And I think somebody also mentioned a golf cart in one of these discussions. But I'm not, I'm not quite sure what they're already planning. So I say we state, all of our concerns, and if it's already in their plan, that's great. And then if it's not, we've brought something else to their attention.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Marie, do you want me to walk you through some of the things that I wrote down, or did you make a list?
I didn't, I've just taken notes. So what I think we need to do now is actually, are we good with that photo? I will stop sharing. I can't see my buttons here. Okay, now I can see you all better. Yeah, I think we need to formulate. Oops, sorry, here we go. Okay. Okay.
Megan, is your hand up still from before, or do you have another question?
I have a question for now, if that's okay. I don't know if it's okay.
I'm going to ask the board, I closed public participation. Are we amenable to allowing somebody to speak?
I have no problem with it personally.
Okay.
Neither.
Okay, Megan?
Some of the items with the ramp I've asked the Architectural Access Board about, but I would strongly encourage you, if it interests you, to do the same with the questions that you have also. Like, I know that there's a lot of governance around ramps. Like, there has to be I think a bottom rail and a top rail, and having these open spaces without railings. I'm sure there's some sort of how that goes too in the 521 CMR. And I think lighting is actually also in the law. I'm not sure if the bathrooms are or not. Somebody who had some experience with the Disability Commission work in California said, do they have to have a bathroom every so often? But I'm not sure if it's in the Mass statute or if all this follows the federal. I'm just getting hip to all of
Yeah,
it.
Bill Renault had stated in the meeting last week that was not a requirement.
And he knows our disability access coordinator for the town of Wakefield is, I think, just finished the second level of certification with ADA work. So he's pretty familiar. And if he doesn't know the answer, he'll get us the answer.
Okay, so let's go, if we can now, and make our, the list of questions or recommendations that we would like to move forward. So let's, what do we think we have on this list that's going to be suitable to the zoning, for the zoning? I think it will be the handicap parking spaces concerns.
Yes, I'm guessing, I'm not sure, that they probably meet. I have the chart that shows the number of spaces that would be required. And are they doing, do they do that for all of the parking spaces that are up there, the 100 and whatever it is, 20 something spaces that are at the top? Or did they do it lot by lot and say, we've got 8 spaces over here that requires 1 accessible space, we have 5 spaces here that requires 1? Or do they look at all of them together and say that if you, I can look up what it is. I can pull up that chart that has the space.
I
requirement.
think they looked at each lot individually
Okay.
and identified, particularly the lot that was closest to the school. In one of the photos we were just looking at, he showed how many spaces there were compared to how many spaces there will be. And he also compared it to with the specific handicap as well. But let me we can pull that back up. All right, so we were like, all right, so you want to look at the parking. This is interior of the building. I'm not gonna be able to find it so quickly anymore. Yep. Finding it, Janice. I'm kind of, I lost my spots. Okay, here we go. All right, I'm going to share again. Can you see?
Yep.
So see up here, he said there were 416 total existing parking spaces with 11 existing accessible parking spaces. Now there's going to be 476, including 22 proposed accessible. So you're asking if we're talking in total or specific lots.
Yeah, it's
right?
kind of hard to tell. So I think they may have done it. So if you have X number of parking spaces, you need X number of
Right.
accessible spaces. If they did all of them together, they could have put all of them in that parking lot that has 171 spaces, but they didn't. They sprinkled them around, which I think
Yeah.
is much better.
Do you think
Around,
this is just the top parking? This is not discussing that
No, it's
bottom
the
lot.
top and the bottom, because the
It
top
is.
has like 218 parking spaces. If you add up the three, the 171, 29, 11, and 4. So there are 218 spaces, including the accessible spaces on the top. I'm trying to find the chart that tells you how many spaces there need to be.
Where are you looking? That's not in the presentation. That's
No,
what
I'm
you're
looking at the Institute for Human Centered Design.
Okay.
So I know that we have I'm trying to remember the exact name of we have a chart that goes into the Massachusetts facility assessment checklist. And it's really easy to use, but I just can't find it. Resources.
Okay, so while you're looking at that, Judy, let's compose your original question was 20 designated handicap parking spaces, 5 spaces at the ready to rapidly increase handicap parking. Or
Right, so however many spaces they have already designated in that upper lot, I would like to suggest that there's a number, I thought 5. They could easily and quickly be converted to handicap spaces if their disability advisory board felt the need. So in other words, I don't think we should make that
identify the number.
determination.
Yep.
It would be if their board, once they started utilizing this building, felt that their number was inadequate to meet their needs, that they could quickly get more on board.
Okay. And what did they call that? Vocational Disability Advisory Board?
I had written down the Disability Advisory Board.
Okay.
And just so that it's clear that it's not us, maybe to specify that it's the Vocational School Disability Advisory Board.
So we, and I should, Wakefield Commission on Disability. Would recommend to the Vocational Disability Advisory Board, should it be determined that the number of allotted accessible parking spaces are deemed inadequate.
So I had written
Yeah,
additional spaces be at the ready if the need arises to increase handicap parking. And
Yeah,
that would be determined by their Vocational School Disability Advisory Board.
so additional spaces be at the ready if the need arises.
To increase handicap parking I don't know what this lot is called. I just called it the lot closest to the school building entrance. I don't know if there's a name to that lot.
I think, yeah, the main parking lot. Near the parking lot next to the main entry. And could we use the term accessible parking spaces? As they did instead of handicapped
Yes, accessible.
disability?
And there, as Lorna pointed out, it doesn't even have to be a placard space. It could be whatever they deem necessary for their student body or their faculty with their own designation that they could make up their own windshield placards their school needs. That's why, again, I think it's difficult for us to make these determinations. I think it really needs to, so personally, I wouldn't even say it's a recommendation. I would say it's a suggestion to the Vocational School Disability Advisory Board. Because they're the ones who are going to be having all that knowledge.
Okay, so I'm gonna need a little help, but here, so we're referencing now the main parking lot next to the main entrance. Suggest Wakefield Commission on Disabilities suggests to the Vocational School Disability Advisory Board that additional parking spaces be at the ready, or if the need
Be at the ready if the
need arises to increase accessible parking.
Exactly.
Do we want to clarify this does not necessarily mean permanently converting parking?
I think it would be up to them to determine what their needs are.
I wonder what I'll ask Bill, I wonder what the requirement is for them to do that, right? They probably, obviously, we know that some of that parking will have to be dedicated, accessible based on the total number of parking spaces. I wonder if you determine that you need more, or if you determine that you, for instance, town meeting, when there's, at the Galvin, there's a certain number of spaces that are clearly marked accessible, permanently accessible. But when there's voting, right, we see signs that go up that with cones that block off additional spaces. And at this election, I even noticed that they had right at the main entrance spaces that were marked for senior citizens. So obviously that can be done.
Yes, exactly.
All right, so main parking lot next to the main entrance, Wakefield Commission on Disabilities suggests to the Vocational School Disability Advisory Board that additional parking spaces be at the ready if the need arises to increase accessible parking.
Could you read it one more time, Marie?
Yes. This is the main parking lot next to the main entrance. Wakefield Commission on Disabilities suggests to the Vocational School Disability Advisory Board that additional parking spaces be at the ready if the need arises to increase accessible parking.
I think that's worded very well. What do other people think?
Works for me.
Okay, so that's our,
Lorna, does that cover what your concern was?
Perhaps.
well, what else would you like? How do you think we should clarify? Or what is more of your concern?
I just don't think, well, it's fine, Marie, it's fine.
The next comment was, Judy, you had suggested 12 communities to provide encouragement and support to the Disability Advisory Board. So are you suggesting that each community have a member on this board?
Not necessarily, but I think that we should just applaud their efforts and encourage them in whatever way we can to continue meeting. I'm not sure what that would look like, but I think it is a necessary part of their process.
The other comment that, we clarified was, we're not sure if this Disability Advisory Board is going to continue to meet once the school is built, but that was another suggestion that you wanted to make, correct?
If they haven't already decided to do that, I think that we would like to encourage them to continue with that board even after it's built and occupied. I think it's a really great part of their process.
Okay, so we suggest that the Voc Commission Advisory Board continue to stay assembled and meet. What do we want to say? Meet on a continued basis. During construction and after
I guess
completion.
I guess I'd like to use the word encourage there, that
Okay.
that we encourage the Vocational School Disability Advisory Board to become a permanent board.
To continue on an ongoing basis.
There you go. Perfect.
And I'd also even like to say, and to bring to the attention of local disability commissions, any issues that are
Perfect.
pertinent.
Yes. And they may already be a permanent board, but I agree with you. If to bring it to that we could be a resource for them.
Okay, keep going. And we encourage the board to continue.
On an ongoing basis.
Yep, I get that. To continue on an ongoing basis and bring to the attention of the local disability commissions
Any pertinent issues.
of each of the 12 member communities. Any pertinent issues.
Sometimes they might need our help. We might need their help,
Perfect. Yes.
Okay, hold on. I want to save this before I go any further, before I hit a button and it all goes away. Sakes. Okay. All right, so we talked about the advisory board. Okay, so Lorna, let's talk about the ramp. We expressed concerns about,
Safety,
right,
safety and usability of the extensive ramp connecting the lower parking lot to the main school facility.
okay, so one of it was, the issue is keeping the ramp from, we know the ramp is gonna freeze from the weather, so how do we want to express this concern?
Encourage the,
And so I would like to suggest that these issues about the safety of the ramp, maybe those could be detailed to be discussed further in the safety committee. Things like the lighting and the camera and the
Okay,
possible call buzzer and the, I think the bench, someplace along for a rest stop is a really probably something that we might want to put in specific. The other parts, it really seems to me more of something that the safety committee needs to really focus on.
okay, so let's do the bench next then. So we talked about the openings in the rail and the fencing, that we suggest a platform be built with, so someone could safely get off the ramp, and also the need for benches on some of the platforms and specifics, space for a wheelchair. So how do we want to word that?
and we want to make sure that the entire ramp continues to meet the specifications of the Architectural Access Board. Because if it does require continuous railing all the way up, how are they doing that with the openings? Maybe that's not considered to be a ramp at that spot because it is a flat spot and therefore doesn't need a railing. So, and then there is a railing on the other side. But so we just want to make sure that it meets all Architectural Access Board requirements. Consider construction of landing platforms that extend beyond the rail at each rail opening to allow a wheelchair user to pull off or somebody who is and people walking up the ramp to rest at a bench, add benches so that people can rest as needed.
I think that might be able to be simplified as
Yep.
a designated resting space along the ramp.
Accessible to wheelchairs, large enough for wheelchairs and
Well,
with a bench.
And as Lorna had pointed out, if somebody maybe has some breathing issues and needs to sit, I think the bench is a great idea.
Yeah.
They could incorporate it someplace.
Mhm.
Okay, ensure the ramp continues to meet the requirements of the Architectural
Access Board.
Access Board. Consider the construction of landing platforms and designated resting spaces / benches along the ramp.
That could be the end. You could just say
Along
that.
the, okay, let's see.
I wonder if it just might need to be clarified that not necessarily along the ramp, because then you wouldn't have enough space to pull off per se,
Okay,
but almost like an extension of where the existing ramp is.
Mm.
so consider the construction of landing platforms.
Platform extensions.
Okay,
That's a good word.
and designated resting spaces / benches along the ramp.
No, I would say that those spaces to be used as designated resting, stopping or resting spaces.
Okay. All right. Consider the construction of landing platform extensions to be used as designated resting / stopping spaces. Such as to include benches.
I would
Resting,
to include a bench.
Or would you even want to just say seated surface?
Yep, that's good.
to include seated surfaces, okay.
As well as space for wheelchair users. Because we don't want the whole thing to become a bench and
Yeah,
unable to be used.
okay. All right, so those are two, I guess we'll call them zoning board recommendations. Suggestions. All right, so now for safety issues.
So what are the two zoning? One would be for the resting area. What's the second?
The handicap parking concerns.
Okay.
And maybe, and at the end of the day, I don't know, handicap parking might go to the traffic advisory. I'm not sure, but we'll get this down, and then when I talk with Bill, he'll be able to advise, what goes where. Okay, so if we talk about the safety and usability of the extensive ramp connecting the lower parking lot to the main school facility, concerns with, I guess we want to say, concerns
Visibility.
with safety and usability of the extensive ramp connecting the lower parking lot to the main school facility. All right. So one concern is the icing of the ramp. What do we want to say there?
I think that also got combined with the idea of a shuttle service of some type from the lower to the upper parking lot during icy months.
Okay. So consider a shuttle service. Do we want to state a time period?
I think the icy
hard to
months is
say.
good,
Okay,
or the inclement months, or
Consider a shuttle service during the inclement months.
How about
Is that-
during hazardous weather conditions?
Okay. I'll do inclement months / hazardous weather conditions. Okay, why don't I, you know, what would be helpful if I shared this while I was typing it so you guys could see it?
Sure.
Oh. All right, so share screen. Okay,
Can we change handicap parking concerns to accessible
oh,
parking? concerns?
yes, thank you. Glad I did that.
Thank you.
Okay,
Do we
so
want
we
to
talked about, all right, so some of the things we talked about, lighting, video camera.
call boxes?
Yep, so, oops. What else do we want to say there? How do we want to put that?
Consider.
Yeah, I guess.
Consider the use of call box cameras and call boxes.
We should say something about the trees.
Right.
I'm with you. I'm all about the trees. I think one of my concerns too is just that there's gonna be this investment of a large amount of money to build this ramp. Something bad's gonna happen, nobody's gonna use it. And you
Right,
know,
I
I
completely
don't want to
agree.
be, I financially telling anybody what they should be doing, but I also think that there's only a finite amount of funding. And so we just need to be really intelligent about how we utilize that instead of, building something that nobody can ever
Right.
use.
Right. This is not a beautiful mountainside. Even though it kind of is a beautiful mountainside, this is a mountainside ramp that's at a high school. And the primary part about this is needs to be safe for the users.
Well, you know that the purpose of leaving the trees is because so many people are just so irate about the location
Oh,
of
I
this school
completely
and what
agree.
they're doing to build it there.
Yep,
So
I agree.
that's this design committee's way of, extending an olive branch, but the reality is they're going to destroy the property. And so now all we can do is to try to make this as safe as it can possibly be.
Yeah.
But
I
I
think
guess
you
I
consider the use-
caution us to say anything about taking down any more trees.
Well, yeah,
Right, you're
also for
right.
the main fact is that by taking down more trees, you're going to have more washout, which is not going to make it safe
Yeah.
for the building and keeping the ramp actually in place. We start messing around with what's there to absorb water in inclement weather. And it's going to make more of a problem with that ridiculous ramp.
Kind of feel like
Right.
if they kept the trees all on one side of the ramp and then took them down off the other side, so that it's visible from at least one side. Address the issue of visibility of the ramp. I would maybe state it as that.
I got a feeling they'd be very happy with their saw.
Yeah, they would have been fine taking those trees down. I think we need to be, we need some descriptive language here in order to express exactly what our concern is. Address the visibility of the ramp. The current rendering it's not just the rendering, it's the words he used.
As Paula said it, the current rendering describes a walk through the woods, which potentially provides for opportunities of assault or abuse. Mhm.
I think we should say at this point, as a result, it is strongly, we are strongly recommending. The use of video surveillance cameras, call boxes,
Lighting, lighting.
yeah, got it, okay.
Okay.
And so do we want to say anything descriptive about the lighting? I mean, I think that their intent, and as somebody told me this, so I don't know this for a fact, is that they're being required to use certain lighting because of the fact that it's in the woods, and we hope we're going to maintain some of the natural habitat, that they're going to be using low lighting or whatever, which I don't personally really care what type of lighting they use as long as it's well lit.
Marie, since they have a safety committee, would we like to have the header of this section be for further discussion in the safety committee?
All right, so as a result, we are strongly recommending the use of video surveillance cameras, call boxes, and lighting. I guess we'll let them. Maybe we don't figure out what kind of lighting they need.
And safety lighting.
Okay, let's try that. Okay. I'm looking through my notes. Is there anything else that,
Well, did we talk about an evacuation plan?
yeah,
They probably have one, but it'd be really nice to know what it is.
I'll ask Bill if we can, if there is going to be a safety meeting, and I would assume it has to be open to the public. We'd like to be alerted to that so that we can make an effort to be there, because it's probably something that's going to be, during the day, like the traffic advisory is usually during the day. But
Yeah, at 8 o'clock in the morning.
right, exactly. Okay, so let's just, rather than call it a plan, let's just talk about concerns regarding evacuation. So we are recommending, how do the evacuation chairs work? Janice, are they at each location? Each
We are
stairwell?
recommending strategically locating evacuation chairs by every stair well. Evacuation chairs
Chairs, yeah.
by every stairwell on every floor, on every upper floor.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Do we say on every floor above ground level? Should we say it that way? Because upper floor, they may think we just mean the top floor.
Okay,
Said that wrong, sorry. Every floor above ground level. That's, so here's a question, does the elevator go down to that lower level? Where the auto? So should we say above or below ground level?
It sounded like that auto shop has outdoor bays that,
right, so I
Oh,
would
you can
guess.
evacuate
that's-
directly
yeah.
outside, yeah, oh, good point.
Yeah,
Because that sounds like a place where a fire could occur, frankly.
all right. And I
Right,
just
because we
want-
also need to be thinking about this, because this was brought up at the meeting the other last week, by someone who also had concerns about evacuations in case of the Alice drills or someone coming in with assault
Active
rifles
shooter,
and things
yeah.
like that. I mean, what's the plan of being able to evacuate people safely so they're not like sitting ducks on a ramp? So I guess it's all around, what's the evacuation plan for regardless of what the situation is.
So here you're concerned about the and that did come up.
Right.
Is that really a disability issue?
These are really,
it's a safety committee issue, I would think.
it's a safety issue.
It's
yeah.
a safety issue, but I mean, it's an issue for all students. It's not just for people with disabilities.
Everybody.
Should we move this evacuation concern with the evacuation chairs up here under zoning board recommendations? I guess with that probably wouldn't be it.
I don't know. Bill might be able to tell you that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Thank goodness we have him.
I know, he's a good
Yep.
resource. All right, so I can do, we'll say evacuation concerns on the ramp. How do we want to word that?
Evacuation concerns to getting out of the building and evacuation concerns of, what's their plan of getting students safely out of the building? And, where's going to be the check-in spots, that type of thing.
Well, I think that's a given. They're gonna have to have that. We don't know what that is.
Well, no, but that would be nice to know.
Yeah, and we'll ask to be part of the, those discussions, but I want to highlight here. If you have a specific concern on the ramp, then I would like to address that specifically, because I don't know if.
Do you want to ask the question, does the evacuation plan include use of the ramp?
Okay.
If so, specify. And then would we want them to, if so, specify how safety will be maintained? Is that what we were looking to say? I'm not sure that's what we wanted to say.
Well, I think that it would address Lorna's concern. And again, when I talked to Bill, he may recommend another wording. I'm just looking at some notes of concerns that some of the public brought up. Another place of concern was the ledge that's going to be behind that building. And another place of concern was the driveway coming up from Hemlock Road, not Hemlock Road, the new road that's going to be built. That's going to be a very long driveway that's not going to have any sidewalks in certain, in most of the way up because of the landscape. They can't, if they put sidewalks, then there's a requirement for accessibility. So they're not going to put any sidewalks.
So
to
I don't
pretty much address
understand
that.
I don't understand that issue. Think about like Prospect Street. There's a sidewalk on Prospect Street.
Correct, but I think, remember that Prospect Street was built before the ADA, right? And so it may be grandfathered in and not have to. Oh, what you're saying is there's sidewalks on Prospect Street, and that's a pretty
That's steep.
sloping.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know why. Well, it's my understanding. It's because, but Prospect Street
Is wider.
and this access road is going to, I don't want to call it a cliff. I don't know if that's the correct wording, but it's going to just slope off. It's going to have like rock on the sides of it. And so at the safety committee meeting that came up, and what they concluded was they're going to have signs posted that say no pedestrian traffic. Like the kids are going to pay any attention to that.
I thought they said at the last meeting that they were going to put a sidewalk. I could be wrong about that.
There's going to be some sidewalk, but I don't think it's going to, let's see if we can get.
Can I clarify, please?
I don't think we're going to have, I don't think we have a good picture in this.
Marie, somebody's offering to clarify.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize someone was on the call. Okay, do we agree that we would allow someone from the public to speak?
Well, we already did, so I think we have to
Okay.
continue.
It was Paul that asked the question.
Okay, Paul?
All I was going to do is just share the information that I had been in a meeting with the public and the proponents had answered the question that there could be no sidewalk going up that access road because of the grade. The grade is almost 10%. Sidewalk can only be up to 5% grade. So it's physically impossible with the current design. There will be no sidewalk. Obviously should be a sidewalk. People will get hurt because of a lack of a sidewalk, but they have stated on the record that it's just too steep and physically not possible. That's why you got the crazy ramp and the horrible steps.
But that's why I'm questioning, how is it that we have sidewalks on steep hills in other places in Wakefield that are certainly more than a 10% grade?
Obviously, it was because look, when Prospect was built in 1725 or 1800, I mean, that's been there a long time. It's not the same comparison of building a school in 2023 that has to go by today's regs and code. You know what I mean?
Can I add to that? From AAB. They said if it's more than 5%, you can't put a sidewalk on it because then it would be out of regulation. So if it's greater than 5% grade. But if there's no sidewalk on it, they can't legislate it.
Thanks, Megan, for that and Paul for your clarification.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Just, yeah, I'm just looking at some notes, so I'm just throwing out any other concerns that, you know, that we feel that we want to address. I mean, obviously this has been brought up before. Is there anything that relates to disability with these items? Or are we?
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead,
On a
Lorna.
consider a shuttle service during the inclement months. So, excuse me, that shuttle service would need to be accessible to somebody that needs to come up from the lower parking spot via wheelchair or walker or.
Okay, so, oh, here we go. And so you want to clarify that this shuttle service should be accessible.
Right.
Okay,
And you could just, yeah, just add, consider an accessible shuttle
Yeah.
service.
okay, anybody else? Is there anything else we would like to address, or are we good with what we've stated here?
That covers everything that I had noted.
Okay, so if we're good, then I'm gonna ask that we, someone make a motion to accept the Disability Commission's recommendations as written.
Make a motion to accept the Disability Commission's recommendations as written.
And would someone second that, please? I'm sorry, I can't see all of you together, so if you're raising a hand.
I second that.
Thanks, Katie. And I'm also going to ask that we make a motion then to allow me to work with Bill Renault to draft a formal letter and submit this to the necessary board or public safety as he suggests.
I'll make a motion for you to work directly with Bill Renault.
Thanks, Judy. And would someone second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Lorna.
Several members of the public have their hands raised. What's your protocol for accepting comments, please?
So we had public participation at the beginning of the meeting. And while we did cut off public participation at the time, we have accepted members of the public to speak since then. So I will, if all are in agreement on the commission, allow the remaining members. I see Brown, Jennifer, and Paul. So to allow those three speakers from the public, are we in agreement on the commission?
Sure.
Yes, as long as hopefully it pertains to disability issues.
Okay, Brown, why don't you go ahead, please?
Oh, thank you very much. I do so appreciate your concerns. I share your concerns and more. And I just wanted to ask a question regarding the Vocational School Disability Advisory Board. Have they been meeting, or is this a new thing? And I can't strongly recommend enough that if there is such an advisory board, that one of you be on it. Really, man, I think that's a necessity, to tell you the truth. The fact that so many people have so many concerns, and you guys have spent, untold number of hours trying to mitigate these concerns, it makes it clear to everyone that this is, a poor design in a very poor location, and everyone's doing the best that they can with this. But I think at the very, very least that I would hope that your recommendations to the Vocational School Building Committee, or to whomever you send them, be very strong. Suggesting is nice, and I know you guys don't, unfortunately, have as much authority as I would like you to have in this instance. But just to check and make sure that there really is a Vocational Disabilities Advisory Board, and to request that a member of yours be on it, so that you're in the loop, and that the communication is consistent, and everything's on the up and up, and transparent. I don't know if you're done with your recommendations, but there should be dark skies compliant lighting. I'm very concerned about the lighting. You can have safe locations, but with dark skies compliant lighting. Like, as someone said earlier in the meeting, they're gonna, destroy the whole area up there anyway, but we can at least try to have some dark skies compliant lighting along the that ramp thing, which they're calling a nature walk, which is very silly, as we all know. But thank you for taking my comments and my questions. Please do investigate the Vocational Disabilities Advisory Board to see if it's a real thing, and to get on it if you can. And please accept my sincere appreciation for the work that you're doing, and trying to make this the best, with a very bad basket of problems to solve. So I do appreciate your efforts very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I have a comment and a question. My comment is just sort of building on what Ron said, which is that many of us, not only the people on this call, but many other people have been asking the project questions about safety and accessibility for about a year now, and only ever heard a response from the project. We essentially have been kind of stonewalled with answers that sort of lack detail or are inconsistent with what they write in their reports. And it's only been within the past week that we've even heard that there is a disability advisory committee, which makes me wonder, well, if we've been asking these questions for a year, how come we only heard about this committee or advisory board a week ago? And so I have concerns, given that, about the idea that this maybe ad hoc advisory board is going to still exist in a month or 6 months or 3 years, when the school is going to open, because it's not scheduled to open for another 3 years if it stays on schedule. So I have concerns about giving recommendations to an advisory board that's not required to even exist in the first place. So I second Ron's suggestion that if that board is going to be regarded with any validity, it needs to be something that disability commissions from the towns have some actual participation in. And relatedly, my question is, given that the school is not scheduled to open until 2026, what do you all expect to be able to do to make sure that in 2026 it's on your radar? This list of things you're putting together tonight, that's a long way off.
So Jennifer, I guess my comment to you would be, we are Commission on Disabilities, just an advisory board to the town of Wakefield. So, Bill Renault, who's our ADA coordinator, is going to be following this project to the end. And, you know, we're going to have to rely on the towns and the boards in town that have the regulatory authority that the school is being built in accordance with the ADA and the architectural board, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, we can, at this point, we can only monitor and advise. And are going to have to trust in our, you know, town leaders to ensure those that are responsible, public, you know, safety and ADA, that all the boxes are being checked. We'll certainly monitor it.
In situations like this, that, you know, they follow the ADA guidelines, and that's exactly what it is, guidelines. It doesn't, and the ADA guidelines are for throughout the United States. So in our situation, at least my opinion is that although it's built according to ADA guidelines, like the ramp, it's not practical. But here we are. Following the ADA guidelines is always sometimes just a cop-out too. So, you know, what can we do? We have to go with what they're telling us and what they intend to do. And hopefully we have some kind of input that they will take the suggestions to heart.
And Paul, did you want to make a comment? Maybe Paul's hand up was from previous. Paul, are you there? Okay, I'm going to assume maybe he stepped away.
Hello,
Hi, you had your hand up. Did you want to make another comment?
I did. I appreciate it. Thanks. I was fat finger in the keyboard there,
Yeah.
a little bit tired. Let me speak quick. Thank you for your dedication, your effort. Thank you for listening to me before. I appreciate you're in a tough position. I would suggest strongly that you guys ask the Voc to show you and take somebody to a ramp that's 8.3% grade. Go check out an 8.3% grade. Because when I hike a lot, I hike Mount Washington every year. I hike all over New England. And what I found is anything beyond 5% grade is not usually acceptable for people who are not in real condition. 8 to 8.3% grade is going to be a serious ramp. And the grade plus the length of the thing being 1,100 feet, transit time. Did you guys think how long it will take for somebody to go 1,100 feet? 1,100 feet is actually over a fifth of a mile. So it's crazy, but it's going to take them about 12 minutes, and unless they're really moving. So that amount of time and exposure to the ramp is just going to add up to injuries and disabilities for people in the long term that could be prevented, because nobody in their right mind, you could pass the architectural advisory board, but this completely fails the common sense advisory board. And I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So do any of the other members of the commission have any other comments that they would
I have
like
a
to make?
question.
Go
I
ahead,
have a
Lois.
question. I'm sorry, I just read a note that Dean and I talking about possibly contacting the zoning board of appeals.
So what we'll do, Lois, is I will get with Bill Renault to
Yeah.
review what we just wrote, and he will advise which one of our concerns is appropriate to go to the zoning board of appeals and which should go to the public safety folks.
Right, I just thought I mentioned, I saw that written down here. And I want to just put that in there and not forget.
Thank you. Yes, with that is part of the plan. And there, and
Also, just one more quick thing. and
sure,
Everybody will be probably getting a notice saying on March 27th, there's gonna be, you know how last year everybody got pins?
thank you for reminding me. I was going to mention that.
So I just wanted to let you know, and that's from 5:45 to 6.
Right, it was March 27. What is it, Lois? 5:45 to what time?
6:45.
Okay, so 1 hour. The town, did you all get emails from Sherry on that? The town is hosting a
Yes, thank
a
you.
board appreciation. Okay, so hope you can make it. I think the only one I've ever attended was the one prior to COVID, and it was a very nice event.
Just wanted to remind you.
Thank you. I appreciate that because I did have it on my mind, but I forgot. So if there are no other comments, we will go ahead and adjourn. Does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn, please?
I will.
Thank you, Lois. So we will adjourn the Commission on Disabilities meeting of 3/13 at 9:17 PM. And would someone second that, please? Thanks, Paula. Thank you all for your time.
Thanks,
It's been
everybody.
another late night, and I will be in touch on my discussions with Bill.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank
Thank
Good
you
you.
a
night.
lot, Marie,
Hard work.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Hard work.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
I might send you a question, Marie. This is Megan.
Sure. Yep.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.